The courtroom was silent, the air thick with tension. A little girl, no older than 10, stood in the center, cradling a tiny baby in her arms. Her clothes were old and worn, her face smeared with dirt, but her eyes, those big, brown eyes, held a strength that shook even the toughest hearts. The judge, a stern-looking man with graying hair and sharp eyes, peered down at her from his high seat. He adjusted his glasses and scoffed. "What is this? A child carrying a child? This is a courtroom, not a playground," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. The audience chuckled, and a few whispered among themselves. The girl didn't flinch. Instead, she held the baby closer to her chest, rocking it gently as it whimpered. The judge shook his head. "Tell me, little girl, what makes you think you belong here? Are you playing house?" The laughter in the room grew louder. But then, the girl raised her head, her lips trembling as she spoke. "This baby," she began, her voice small but steady. "This baby is the only family I have left." The laughter stopped. The room fell into a stunned silence. The judge blinked, as if he had misheard her. The girl took a deep breath, her tiny hands clutching the baby protectively. "And I'm here because I need justice." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. The judge's mocking smirk faded, replaced by something else, something close to regret. But before anyone could react, the courtroom doors burst open. A man stormed in, his face twisted with rage. His eyes locked onto the little girl, and his voice thundered through the silent room. "You," he bellowed. "You had no right to come here." The little girl's arms tightened around the baby as fear flickered across her face. The judge pounded his gavel. "Who are you?" he demanded. But the man didn't answer. He lunged forward, straight for the girl. It had all started 2 days ago. Mila sat on the cold wooden floor of a dimly lit room, rocking the tiny baby in her arms. His name was Leo, and he was only 6 months old. He had chubby cheeks, soft brown curls, and big, curious eyes. He was perfect, but he was also hungry, and Mila had no food to give him. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She was used to being hungry. It was Leo she worried about. His little body trembled, his cries weak and tired. Mila wiped a tear from his cheek. "Shoo, baby. I promise I'll find something," she whispered. She looked around the room. The walls were cracked, and the air smelled of dampness. A single mattress lay in the corner, and beside it, an empty bottle. There was nothing left. She knew she had to do something. Clutching Leo close, she stepped outside. The night was cold, and the streets were nearly empty. She walked quickly, her bare feet pressing against the rough pavement. She reached a small store at the corner. Through the glass window, she saw rows of food, bread, milk, fruits. Her stomach twisted at the sight. She stepped inside, her heart pounding. The shopkeeper, a heavy-set man with a thick mustache, eyed her suspiciously. "What do you want, girl?" Mila swallowed hard. "Please, I need food for my baby." The man's eyes flicked to Leo, then back to Mila. No money, no food. Her heart sank. She had nothing to give him. She turned to leave, but then, something caught her eye. A small loaf of bread sitting on the counter. She could take it. Just one piece. Just enough to keep Leo from starving. Her hands trembled as she reached out. But just as her fingers brushed the bread, a strong hand grabbed her wrist. The shopkeeper's grip was like iron. "Thief!" he roared. Mila gasped. The next moments were a blur. Shouting, the sound of footsteps, the flashing of lights. Someone called the police. And just like that, Mila found herself in the back of a police car, clutching a crying Leo, heading toward a place she had never been before. The courthouse. She didn't know what would happen. She only knew one thing. She had to protect Leo, no matter what. And that was how she ended up standing in the middle of the courtroom, being mocked by the judge, while holding the only family she had left. And now, with the courtroom doors flung open and an angry man charging toward her, she realized. This was only the beginning. Mila's breath caught in her throat as the man stormed toward her, his face red with fury. The baby in her arms whimpered, sensing the danger. She clutched him tighter, her tiny fingers gripping his blanket. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. I demand to know who you are. The man ignored him, his eyes locked onto Mila. You have no right to be here, he spat. You little thief. You think you can just walk into a courtroom and ask for justice? Mila's heart pounded. She knew that voice. She had spent nights fearing it, hiding from it. It was Mr. Grayson, the man who had locked her and Leo in that tiny, rotten room. The man who had promised to take care of them after their mother died, but had only ever hurt them instead. She took a step back, her knees shaking. You're not supposed to be here, she whispered. Mr. Grayson sneered. And you are? He turned to the judge, pointing a thick finger at her. This girl is a liar. A troublemaker. She stole that baby. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Mila's eyes widened. That's not true, she cried. The judge narrowed his eyes. Is this baby not yours? Mila's lip quivered. He's my brother. Mr. Grayson let out a cruel laugh. She's not fit to take care of him. Look at her. She's filthy, starving. What can she possibly offer that baby? Mila swallowed the lump in her throat. She wanted to scream, to tell everyone the truth about what this man had done to them. But the words stuck in her throat. The judge sighed heavily. We'll get to the bottom of this. Officers, remove this man until I say otherwise. 2 guards moved forward, grabbing Mr. Grayson by the arms. He struggled, but finally let himself be dragged back. His glare never left Mila. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed before being forced out. The heavy doors slammed shut behind him. Mila shivered. The danger wasn't gone. It had only been pushed aside, for now. The judge rubbed his temples. This is a mess, he muttered. He looked at Mila again, but this time, his eyes weren't just stern. They held something else. Curiosity. All right, little girl, he said. Start from the beginning. 2 weeks ago, before everything fell apart, Mila had a mother. Her name was Rebecca, and she was the strongest person Mila had ever known. Even when they didn't have enough food, even when she was tired from working long hours, she always had a smile for Mila and Leo. It's us against the world, she would say, pressing a kiss to their foreheads. But one night, everything changed. Mila woke up to the sound of coughing. Rough, painful coughing. She climbed out of bed and tiptoed toward the small kitchen, where she found her mother bent over the sink, gripping the counter as if she would fall. Mom? Mila whispered. Rebecca turned, her face pale, sweat dripping down her forehead. Go back to bed, sweetheart, she said, forcing a weak smile. But Mila didn't move. That night, her mother collapsed. By morning, she was gone. Mila didn't understand at first. She shook her mother's shoulders, begging her to wake up. She pressed her tiny hands against her mother's cheeks, hoping to feel the warmth return. But she never did. The neighbors called the authorities, and that was when Mr. Grayson showed up. He told everyone that he was Rebecca's distant cousin, that he would take Mila and Leo Indiana, that they would be safe with him. It was all a lie. At first, Mila believed him. He gave them food, a warm place to sleep. But it didn't take long before she saw the truth. Mr. Grayson never cared about them. He locked them in a small, windowless room, only letting them out when he needed them to clean or run errands. He never let them go to school. He barely gave them food. And sometimes, when he was angry, he hit Mila. Not hard at first. A shove here, a slap there. But it got worse. Mila took every hit without complaint. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just held Leo close and whispered that everything would be okay. Until one night, when she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Mr. Grayson was talking on the phone. He didn't know Mila was listening. They're useless to me, he muttered. The baby's too much work. I'll get rid of him first. The girl. She can be sold off. Mila's stomach twisted. She didn't know exactly what he meant, but she knew one thing. She had to run. That night, when Mr. Grayson was asleep, she took Leo and slipped out the window. She didn't have a plan. She just ran. She ran until her legs burned, until she couldn't breathe. And that was how she ended up in the city, alone, hungry, desperate. That was how she ended up in the small grocery store, reaching for a piece of bread. That was how she ended up here, standing in the middle of a courtroom, begging for justice. The judge listened quietly as Mila told her story. When she finished, the room was silent. No one spoke. No one even moved. Then the judge leaned forward, his fingers tapping against his desk. You expect me to believe that a man took you in, fed you, and then decided to, what, sell you? Mila's stomach dropped. He didn't believe her. Her fingers curled into a fist. I'm telling the truth, she whispered. The judge sighed. Do you have any proof? Mila hesitated. She had nothing. No pictures. No papers. No witnesses. Just scars. She slowly lifted her sleeve, revealing the bruises that lined her arm. The room gasped. The judge's eyes widened. Before he could speak, the doors burst open again. A police officer rushed in, his face pale. Your Honor, he said quickly, we just received an urgent report. Mr. Grayson, he's gone. Mila's heart stopped. Gone? The officer nodded grimly. He escaped from custody. The room erupted in whispers. The judge slammed his gavel, but his face was pale. Mila's breath came in quick gasps. If Mr. Grayson was free, he was coming for her, and he wasn't going to let her escape again. The air in the courtroom turned heavy, as if the walls themselves had swallowed everyone's breath. Mila's hands trembled around Leo's tiny body. She could feel his warmth, hear his soft breathing, but her mind was stuck on two terrifying words. He escaped. The judge's face was unreadable. The police officer stood frozen, the urgency in his voice now sinking into the crowd. The murmurs turned into panicked whispers, rippling through the room like waves in a storm. Enough, the judge barked, slamming his gavel down. The whispers died instantly. He turned to the officer. How? He was under guard. The officer shifted uncomfortably. We don't know yet, sir. One of the officers found the cell door open, and the back exit of the station was unlocked. He's gone without a trace. Mila could barely hear what they were saying. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. He was out there, looking for her. The judge let out a long sigh and rubbed his temples. His eyes flickered to Mila, then to Leo, and finally back to the officer. Send out an alert. Every officer in the area is to be on the lookout. He won't get far. The officer nodded and rushed out. Mila's lips parted, but no words came out. Her throat was tight. Her chest felt as if someone was pressing down on it. She forced herself to take a shaky breath. The judge turned his gaze back to her. His expression was different now, less sharp, less mocking. For the first time since she had stepped into the courtroom, he looked at her like she was more than just a street kid. You're afraid, he said simply. Mila swallowed. He's coming for me, she whispered. The judge didn't respond right away. He leaned back in his chair, tapping a finger on his desk. Then, with a sigh, he nodded to a woman sitting near the front. She had short, graying hair and kind eyes. Miss Carter, he said, we'll need emergency protective custody for the children. Mila blinked. Protective what? The woman, Miss Carter, stood and walked over. She knelt in front of Mila and gave her a gentle smile. It means we're going to keep you safe, sweetheart, she said softly. Safe. Mila wanted to believe it. She really did. But deep down, she knew the truth. Mr. Grayson didn't stop until he got what he wanted. The judge continued speaking, giving orders to the court officers, but Mila barely heard him. Her mind was racing. She needed a plan. She needed to keep Leo safe. Miss Carter gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Come with me, dear. We'll take you somewhere safe for the night. Mila hesitated. She looked up at the judge. What if he finds us? The judge's eyes softened, just a little. He won't. Mila wasn't so sure. The safe house was a small, warm place with soft couches and thick blankets. There were other children there, but Mila barely spoke to them. She stayed close to Leo, watching the door, waiting for the sound of footsteps. Miss Carter had given her food, a hot meal of soup and bread, but her stomach was too tight with fear to eat much. The hours passed. Night fell. The house grew quiet. Mila curled up on the bed with Leo, her fingers brushing his tiny hand. His breathing was soft, steady, peaceful. She wished she could sleep as easily as he did. She stared at the ceiling, listening. Every creak of the house made her jump. Every shadow outside the window sent her heart racing. She knew Mr. Grayson. She knew he wouldn't stop looking. And she was right. Because just as her eyes finally began to close, a sound made her sit up straight. A thud. From outside the window, Mila's breath caught. Slowly, carefully, she slid out of bed, cradling Leo against her chest. She tiptoed to the window and peeked through the curtain. At first, she saw nothing. Then, a figure moved in the darkness. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing completely still. Watching, Mila's heart slammed against her ribs. Mr. Grayson. He had found her. Mila's breath hitched in her throat. She clutched Leo tighter, pressing her back against the wall beside the window. He found us. The figure outside didn't move at first. He just stood there in the shadows, his face hidden in the night. But Mila knew it was him. She could feel it in her bones. Her fingers trembled as she pulled the curtain back just an inch more. Then, just as she thought maybe, just maybe, she was wrong. The figure took a step forward. The dim glow of the street lamp revealed his face. Mr. Grayson. His eyes locked onto the window. And then, he grinned. Mila's stomach twisted into knots. She stumbled backward, her mind racing. She needed to wake Miss Carter. She needed to tell someone. She needed. A sudden sound made her freeze. Click. Her heart stopped. The front door. It was locked. It should be locked. But the sound she just heard, it was the sound of a lock turning. He was inside. Mila turned on her heels and ran. She held Leo close, his tiny breath warm against her neck as she bolted toward the hallway. She had to find Miss Carter. But before she could reach the bedroom door, the floor creaked behind her. She spun around, her breath catching in her throat. A shadow loomed at the end of the hallway. Slow, steady, moving toward her. A low chuckle echoed in the darkness. You really thought you could run, little girl? Mila's fingers curled into a fist. No, not this time. Her whole life, she had been afraid of him. Afraid of what he would do. Afraid of what he was capable of. But not tonight. Tonight, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Leo. Mr. Grayson took another step closer. Hand over the baby, he said, his voice calm, almost amused. And I might let you go. Mila's jaw clenched. I'd rather die. His grin widened. That can be arranged. Then, without warning, he lunged. Mila turned and ran. She didn't think. She just moved. Her bare feet pounded against the wooden floor as she sprinted down the hallway. She didn't have time to be quiet, didn't have time to be careful. All that mattered was getting away. She bolted past the bedroom doors, past the stairs. She needed a way out. Now. But just as she turned the corner, a hand grabbed her wrist. She screamed. Mr. Grayson yanked her back, his grip iron tight. Leo started wailing in her arms, his cries piercing the silent house. Mila struggled, kicking, thrashing, trying to break free. But Mr. Grayson was stronger. I told you, he hissed. You belong to me. His fingers dug into her arm as he dragged her toward the back door. Mila's breath came in short gasps. She couldn't let this happen. She couldn't let him take them. Think, Mila. Think. Her eyes darted around the hallway. Then, the lamp, just a few feet away, on the hallway table. With every ounce of strength she had left, Mila twisted her body, forcing Mr. Grayson off balance for just a second. It was enough. She lunged for the lamp and grabbed it with both hands. Then, with everything inside her, she swung. The lamp shattered against Mr. Grayson's head. He let out a strangled yell and stumbled backward, his grip on her wrist loosening. Mila didn't wait. She turned and ran straight for Miss Carter's room. She didn't even knock. She slammed her shoulder into the door and burst inside. Help, she screamed. Miss Carter jolted awake, her eyes wide with confusion. Mila? What? Then, before Mila could answer, the door behind her exploded open. Mr. Grayson was there, blood dripping down his temple, his face twisted with fury. Miss Carter gasped, scrambling out of bed. Who? Then her eyes widened in horror. Mila knew the exact moment Miss Carter understood. But before she could react, Mr. Grayson reached into his jacket and pulled out a knife. The air turned ice cold. Leo kept crying. Mila's body went numb. Miss Carter's voice was shaky. Put that down. Mr. Grayson smirked. Or what? Mila took a step back, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. The knife gleamed under the dim light. She knew Mr. Grayson. If he wanted something, he took it. And right now, he wanted Leo. She wasn't going to let that happen. Without thinking, she bolted toward the nightstand, grabbing the first thing she saw, a heavy glass vase. She hurled it at him. Crash. The glass shattered against his shoulder. He roared in pain, stumbling back, but the knife was still in his grip. Miss Carter grabbed the nearest object, a metal lamp, and swung it at his arm. This time, it worked. The knife clattered to the ground, and before Mr. Grayson could reach for it, Miss Carter shoved him hard. He tripped over the chair behind him and fell backward. His head smacked against the wooden floor with a sickening thud. For a second, everything was silent. Mila's breath came in ragged gasps. Leo had stopped crying. Then, the sound of sirens filled the air. Bright red and blue lights flashed through the window. Miss Carter grabbed Mila's hand. "Stay behind me," she whispered. Heavy footsteps pounded through the house. Then, freeze. Several officers stormed into the room, their guns raised. Mr. Grayson groaned, blinking dazedly. One officer rushed forward, pinning his hands behind his back. "You're under arrest," the officer barked. Handcuffs clicked, and just like that, it was over. Mila's knees buckled. Miss Carter caught her before she fell. Tears burned in Mila's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She just held Leo tighter, pressing her forehead against his soft curls. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were safe. Mila sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her arms wrapped tightly around Leo. The cold, sterile air smelled of antiseptic, but she didn't care. They were safe. She kept replaying the moment in her head. The sirens, the officers storming in, the way Mr. Grayson's face twisted when they forced him into the back of the police car. It was over. But somehow, Mila couldn't stop shaking. Miss Carter sat beside her, holding a warm cup of tea in her hands. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said gently. "You don't have to be scared anymore." Mila nodded, but the fear was still there, creeping in the back of her mind. She had spent so long running, so long looking over her shoulder, that she didn't know how to stop. What if Mr. Grayson escaped again? What if he found a way to come back? What if this wasn't really over? A soft knock on the door made her jump. A tall officer stepped in, his badge gleaming under the fluorescent light. He had kind eyes and a firm, serious expression. "Mila," he said. She hesitated before nodding. The officer pulled out a notepad. "I need to ask you a few questions about Mr. Grayson." Mila swallowed hard. "Is he really gone this time?" The officer's eyes darkened. "He's in custody, and we have more than enough evidence to put him away for a long time." Mila's fingers clenched around Leo's blanket. She wanted to believe that. She really did. But Mr. Grayson had a way of slipping through cracks. She wasn't sure anything could keep him locked away forever. The officer took a seat across from her. "I need to know everything, Mila. Anything you remember about him, where he took you, what he did. We need to build a strong case against him." Mila hesitated. Talking about it made her stomach twist. But then she looked down at Leo's sleeping face. She had to do this. For him. She took a deep breath. "I can tell you everything." The questioning lasted for hours. Mila told them everything. How Mr. Grayson had taken them in after their mother died. How he locked them away. How he planned to sell her and get rid of Leo. Every time she spoke, she felt her chest tighten. Every word was like reliving a nightmare. Miss Carter held her hand the whole time. By the end of it, the officer closed his notebook and sighed. "You're a brave girl, Mila." Mila just stared down at her lap. She didn't feel brave. She felt tired. The officer stood. "Mr. Grayson will be going away for a long time. But there's something else we need to talk about." Mila's breath caught. "What?" The officer exchanged a glance with Miss Carter. Then he turned back to Mila. "We need to find a home for you and Leo." Mila stiffened. Home. She had spent so long trying to survive. She hadn't even thought about what came next. Miss Carter squeezed her hand. "We'll do everything we can to keep you together, sweetheart. I promise." Mila's stomach twisted. "You're sending us to foster care? aren't you? The officer hesitated. That's one option. But, he flipped through his notes. Your mother had no other family listed. There's a chance you and Leo might be placed separately. Mila's heart stopped.
No.
Miss Carter rubbed her shoulder. Sweetheart. No. Mila's voice cracked. You can't take him from me. He's all I have left. Leo stirred in her arms, his tiny fingers curling around the fabric of her shirt. The officer sighed. We don't want that to happen, Mila. But taking care of a baby isn't easy. You're just a child yourself. I'm not a child, she snapped. The officer looked at her sadly. You shouldn't have had to grow up this fast. Mila's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to fight, to make them understand. But she could see it in their faces. They didn't think she could do it. Tears burned at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I'll do anything, she whispered. Just don't take him from me. Miss Carter's face softened. Mila, we're not your enemies. We want what's best for both of you. Mila clutched Leo closer. He's safest with me. Silence filled the room. The officer let out a slow breath. There may be another way. Mila looked up, hope flickering in her chest. What do you mean? The officer glanced at Miss Carter again, then back at Mila. If we can find a guardian willing to take both of you in, the court might allow you to stay together. Mila's heart pounded. Who? Miss Carter smiled softly. I might have someone in mind. Mila frowned. Who? Miss Carter hesitated, then said, Me. Mila's breath caught. You. Miss Carter nodded. I don't have any children of my own. I've been fostering kids for years. And, if you'll have me, I'd love to take you and Leo, Indiana. Mila's chest tightened. She barely knew Miss Carter. Could she trust her? Could she really be the home Mila and Leo needed? But then she thought about everything Miss Carter had done tonight. How she had fought for her. How she had risked her own life to protect them. And for the first time in a long time, Mila felt something she hadn't in years. Hope. Tears blurred her vision. You really mean it? Miss Carter smiled. With all my heart. Mila looked down at Leo, then back at Miss Carter. And for the first time since her mother died, she whispered, okay. Miss Carter wrapped her arms around her, holding her close. Mila sank into the warmth, her tears finally spilling over. For the first time in forever, she wasn't alone. Mila stood outside the courthouse, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the pavement. Leo stirred in her arms, his tiny hands grasping the edge of her shirt. She kissed the top of his head, inhaling the faint baby scent that always calmed her. Today was the hearing. Today, a judge would decide if she and Leo could stay together. Miss Carter stood beside her, offering a reassuring squeeze to her shoulder. No matter what happens in there, Mila, I promise you, I won't let them separate you two without a fight. Mila nodded, swallowing hard. She wanted to believe her. She really did. But the world had never been kind to her. Why would today be any different? They stepped inside, walking down the long, echoing hallway. Mila's stomach twisted tighter with every step. When they finally reached the courtroom doors, Miss Carter knelt beside her. Are you ready? Mila wasn't sure if she'd ever be ready, but she straightened her back and nodded. Miss Carter smiled and pushed open the doors. The courtroom was smaller than the one before. No audience, no whispers, just a long wooden table, a few chairs, and a judge sitting at the front. Mila's chest tightened when she saw the same judge from before. The one who had mocked her when she first walked in, carrying Leo. Would he even give her a chance? They took their seats, and Mila tried to focus on keeping her breathing steady. The judge adjusted his glasses and glanced through the paperwork in front of him. All right, he said in a dry voice. This is the case of Mila Thompson and her younger brother, Leo. The court needs to determine whether the two children should remain together or be placed separately. Mila gritted her teeth. They can't take him from me. They can't. A woman in a gray suit, someone from Child Protective Services, stood up. Your Honor, while we recognize the strong bond between the siblings, we must also acknowledge that Mila is only 10 years old. Raising an infant is an impossible task for someone her age. Mila clenched her fists. Miss Carter spoke next, her voice calm but firm. Your Honor, I'd like to petition for guardianship of both children. I have been fostering children for over 15 years and am fully capable of providing for them. The judge raised a skeptical eyebrow. And you're willing to take on a 10-year-old and a baby? Miss Carter didn't even hesitate. Absolutely. The judge leaned back in his chair, studying them. Then, his gaze landed on Mila. Tell me, young lady, he said, steepling his fingers, why do you believe you should stay with this child? Do you really think you can take care of him? Mila's heart pounded. This was her chance. She straightened her back, meeting the judge's gaze head-on. I've been taking care of Leo his whole life, she said. I fed him when we had no food. I kept him safe when no one else would. I love him, Your Honor. And that's more than I can say for anyone else who was supposed to. The courtroom fell silent. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Love is not enough, child. Mila's chest ached. It should be. Miss Carter placed a hand on Mila's shoulder. Your Honor, I believe Mila's love for her brother is exactly why she deserves to stay with him. I'm not here to replace her. I'm here to help her, to make sure she and Leo get the life they deserve. Together. The judge drummed his fingers on the desk. He seemed deep in thought. Mila held her breath. Finally, after what felt like forever, he spoke. This is not an easy decision. But after reviewing the circumstances, I find that it would not be in the best interest of the children to separate them. Mila's heart leaped. The judge turned to Miss Carter. Your petition for guardianship is granted. Mila and Leo will remain together. Under your care. Miss Carter squeezed Mila's shoulder. Mila's breath hitched, tears welling in her eyes. They did it. They were staying together. The judge banged his gavel. Court adjourned. Mila stepped outside the courthouse, the bright sun warming her face. For the first time in what felt like forever, she could breathe. Miss Carter turned to her, smiling softly. You did it, sweetheart. Mila looked down at Leo, who was babbling happily in her arms. She pressed a kiss to his forehead. We did it. Miss Carter led them toward the car. But before Mila climbed in, she looked up at the sky. Her mother had always told her that no matter how dark things got, there was always a light waiting somewhere. Mila never believed it before. But now? Now, she wasn't so sure. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something good. Mila sat in the back seat of Miss Carter's car, her fingers curled protectively around Leo's tiny hands. The courthouse was behind them now, but her heart still pounded like they were running from something unseen. They were free. They were together. But why did she still feel like something was coming? Miss Carter glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her eyes soft with concern. How about some ice cream? She asked. I know a place that has the best chocolate sundaes. Mila blinked. Ice cream? She hadn't had that in, how long? Her stomach twisted. The last time she'd had ice cream, her mom had bought it for her. Vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. She had held Leo on her lap and let him have the first bite. He had giggled, his chubby hands smacking against the little cup. That felt like another life. Mila shook her head. I'm not hungry. Miss Carter's smile faltered for a second, but she didn't push. All right, sweetheart. Let's just get home, then. Home. That word still felt strange. Miss Carter's house was bigger than anywhere Mila had ever lived. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. Safe. The living room was filled with soft couches and shelves lined with books and picture frames. There was a rocking chair near the window, and the kitchen smelled like cinnamon. It was nothing like the cold, damp rooms she had been forced to sleep in before. Miss Carter set her purse down and clapped her hands together. All right, Mila. There's a room upstairs for you and Leo. I got a crib set up, and there are extra blankets if you need them. Mila hesitated at the foot of the staircase. Leo sleeps with me. Miss Carter's smile didn't waver. That's fine, sweetheart. Whatever makes you comfortable. Mila studied her, trying to find some hidden meaning in her words. But there was nothing. Miss Carter wasn't like Mr. Grayson. She didn't demand things. She didn't threaten. She just cared. That felt even scarier. That night, Mila sat curled up in bed. Leo snuggled against her. The house was quiet, peaceful, but her mind wouldn't rest. She kept thinking about Mr. Grayson. Was he really locked away this time? Would he stay there? Or was he already looking for a way out? Mila pulled the blankets tighter around herself. She needed to stop thinking like this. She needed to believe they were safe now. But the world had never been that easy for her. And deep down, she knew this wasn't over. She was right. Because the next morning, when Miss Carter opened the front door to grab the mail, her face went pale. Mila sat up instantly, heart pounding. What is it? Miss Carter swallowed hard. She didn't speak right away. Then, finally, she turned and held up a small, crumpled piece of paper. Mila's stomach dropped. The note had only 4 words. I'm not finished yet. Mila's breath caught. There was no name. There didn't need to be. She already knew who sent it. Mr. Grayson. Miss Carter wasted no time. She called the police immediately, her voice sharp and urgent. Mila sat on the couch, gripping Leo as if he might disappear. The officer on the phone promised they would send someone over, that they would look into it. But Mila knew better. Mr. Grayson was smart. He wouldn't get caught easily. And if he was sending messages, it meant he wasn't just watching. He was planning something. Miss Carter hung up the phone and turned to Mila, her expression tense but gentle. We'll be careful, sweetheart. I won't let anything happen to you or Leo. Mila wanted to believe her, but fear curled in her stomach like a sickness. She had seen what Mr. Grayson was capable of, and she knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't stop, not until he had what he wanted. And that meant they were running out of time. The night air was thick with silence. Mila lay awake in her new bed, her arms wrapped around Leo, his soft breath warm against her neck. The house was quiet, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. I'm not finished yet. The words from the note wouldn't leave her head. She had spent her whole life looking over her shoulder. She knew what it felt like to be hunted. Mr. Grayson was out there, watching, waiting. She tightened her grip around Leo. I won't let him take you. I won't. Miss Carter had locked every door, checked every window twice. The police had promised extra patrols in the area, but promises meant nothing to Mila. Not when she knew what kind of monster was lurking out there. She glanced at the window, half expecting to see a shadow standing outside. Nothing. But that didn't mean he wasn't there. The next morning, Miss Carter took Mila to a small store downtown. She said they needed clothes, blankets, diapers for Leo, things to start fresh. Mila wasn't used to shopping. She was used to stealing. She was used to taking just enough to survive and running before anyone caught her. Now, she stood in the middle of the store, surrounded by clothes she could actually pick. Things she didn't have to hide under her coat. It didn't feel real. Miss Carter held up a soft blue sweater. This would look nice on you. Mila shrugged. I don't need anything. Miss Carter's expression didn't change. She just placed the sweater in the cart. You deserve nice things, Mila. Mila's chest ached at those words. No one had ever said that to her before. She turned away before Miss Carter could see the emotion in her face. She didn't want to get used to this. She had spent too long expecting the worst. And deep down, she knew something bad was coming. She was right. Because just as they were leaving the store, Mila felt it. That creeping, cold sensation at the back of her neck. Someone was watching them. She turned quickly, scanning the street. Crowds of people moved past. Men in suits, mothers pushing strollers, kids laughing. But then, she saw him. Across the street, standing perfectly still, dark eyes locked onto hers. Her stomach twisted into knots. Mr. Grayson. He was here. Not hiding. Not running. Standing in the open. Taunting her. Her fingers clenched around the handle of the stroller. No. This isn't happening. This isn't real. But it was. Miss Carter noticed her tense posture. Mila? What's wrong? Mila swallowed hard. We need to leave. Now. Miss Carter frowned. What? Then she followed Mila's gaze. Her entire body went stiff. She saw him too. Without another word, she turned the stroller sharply and grabbed Mila's hand. Come on. They walked quickly, weaving through the crowd. But Mila knew. He was following them. The second they got home, Miss Carter locked the doors and called the police. Mila sat on the couch, gripping Leo tightly. She could still see him in her mind, standing there, smirking, as if he already knew how this would end. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the area. Nothing. No sign of Mr. Grayson. It was like he had vanished. One of the officers, a tall woman with sharp eyes, knelt beside Mila. "Are you sure it was him?" Mila's hands curled into fists. "I'd never forget his face." The officer nodded. "We'll keep an eye out. Stay inside. Keep your doors locked." Mila's jaw clenched. That wasn't good enough. She knew Mr. Grayson. He wasn't just going to watch forever. Next time, he wouldn't just be standing there. Next time, he would make his move. The night stretched on, long and restless. Mila lay awake in bed, her ears straining against the silence. Every creak of the house, every rustle of wind against the window sent her heart hammering. She hadn't told Miss Carter, but she knew something the police didn't. Mr. Grayson wasn't following them out of revenge. He was following them because he thought Mila belonged to him, and he wasn't going to stop until he had her and Leo back. She knew it. She could feel it in her bones. She wouldn't let that happen. But how could she stop a man like him? The next morning, Miss Carter's house felt different. Mila noticed it right away. The way Miss Carter kept glancing toward the windows, the way she double-checked the locks, the way her usual calmness seemed forced. She was scared too. That made Mila's stomach tighten. If Miss Carter was scared, what did that mean for them? A knock at the door made them both jump. Miss Carter hesitated, then peeked through the peephole. "It's the police," she said, relief washing over her face. She unlocked the door and let them in. It was the same officer from before, the sharp-eyed woman who had taken Mila's statement. Her name was Officer Reynolds. She looked serious. Too serious. "We have news," she said. Mila's stomach dropped. Miss Carter motioned for them to sit. "What is it?" Officer Reynolds didn't waste time. "Mr. Grayson is gone." The air in the room turned heavy. Mila's heart pounded. "What do you mean, gone?" Officer Reynolds sighed. "We had officers watching the area, but he's vanished. No sign of him at his old apartment. No records of him buying tickets to leave town. No relatives to visit." Mila's breath came faster. "That doesn't mean he left." Officer Reynolds nodded grimly. "You're right. Which is why I need to tell you something important." Mila and Miss Carter both leaned forward. Officer Reynolds took a slow breath. "A man like Mr. Grayson doesn't just disappear. He's planning something. And from the way he's been watching you." She looked straight at Mila. "I think he's going to try and take you." A chill crawled down Mila's spine. Miss Carter's voice turned sharp. "That won't happen." Officer Reynolds nodded. "We'll make sure of it. But we need you both to be extra careful. Do not go outside alone. Keep the doors locked at all times. And if you see anything at all, call us immediately." Miss Carter gripped Mila's shoulder. "You're safe here, sweetheart." Mila wanted to believe her. She really did. But she wasn't sure anywhere was safe anymore. The day passed in a blur. Mila stayed inside, refusing to go near the windows. Every movement outside made her pulse jump. She tried to act normal for Leo. She fed him, changed him, played with him. But every time she smiled, it felt fake. Miss Carter tried too. She made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner, sat with Mila on the couch, told stories about the other kids she had fostered. But the fear was there, lurking. Mila could see it in Miss Carter's eyes. They both knew this wasn't over. That night, Mila barely slept. She lay awake, listening, waiting. Something felt off. The house was too quiet. The air felt too still. Then, creak. Mila froze. That sound hadn't come from inside the house. It came from outside, right below her window. Her chest tightened. Slowly, carefully, she slid out of bed, cradling Leo as she tiptoed toward the window. She peeked through the curtain. At first, she saw nothing. Then, a shadow moved. Mila's breath caught. A dark figure stood at the edge of the yard, watching, waiting. She knew who it was. She knew. Mr. Grayson was here. Mila's heart pounded so hard, she thought it might wake Leo. She stumbled back from the window, her breaths coming in quick gasps. She had to wake Miss Carter. She had to call the police. But just as she turned, tap, her blood ran cold. A single, deliberate tap against the glass. He knew she was watching. He wanted her to see him. Mila's hands shook. He was playing with her. She sucked in a breath, forcing herself to move. She ran down the hall, her bare feet barely making a sound against the floor. She reached Miss Carter's door and threw it open. "Miss Carter," she gasped. Miss Carter shot up, instantly alert. Mila? Mila could barely get the words out. He's here. Miss Carter moved. She grabbed the phone and called the police while running to check the front door. She locked it, again, even though it was already locked. Then she grabbed something from the table. A bat. Mila had never seen her look so fierce. Miss Carter turned to her. Stay close. Keep Leo quiet. Mila nodded, gripping Leo tighter. Minutes stretched on like hours. Then, the sound of sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A knock at the door. Police. Miss Carter let them in. 3 officers flooded inside. One of them, Officer Reynolds, wasted no time. Where did you see him? Mila pointed toward her window, her hands still shaking. The officers rushed outside. For a long time, there was silence. Then one officer returned. He shook his head. Nothing. Mila's stomach dropped. Miss Carter's face darkened. Are you saying she imagined it? No, the officer frowned. She saw something. But whoever it was, they're gone now. Mila felt sick. Gone. Just like before. Officer Reynolds knelt beside Mila, her expression serious. We'll stay on high alert. We won't stop until we find him. Mila's hands clenched. She didn't want to be protected. She wanted to end this. She looked at Miss Carter. He won't stop. Miss Carter's eyes were full of worry. Mila took a shaky breath. Then neither will we. Somewhere out there, in the darkness, Mr. Grayson was still watching, still waiting. But so was Mila. And next time, she wouldn't just run. Next time, she would fight. Mila sat on the living room floor, gripping Leo tightly. The weight of exhaustion pressed down on her, but she refused to close her eyes. She couldn't sleep. Not now. Not when she knew he was out there. Miss Carter was in the kitchen, whispering to Officer Reynolds on the phone. Mila could only make out bits and pieces of the conversation. Can't keep running. He's always one step ahead. Witness protection isn't an option. She's just a child, Reynolds. Mila tightened her hold on Leo. A child. That was what they always called her. But she wasn't just a child. She was Leo's protector. She was the only one who truly understood what Mr. Grayson was capable of. And she knew something the police didn't. He was waiting for them to slip up. Later that night, Miss Carter sat beside her on the couch. Sweetheart, you need to get some rest. Mila shook her head. I can't, Miss Carter sighed, tucking a stray curl behind Mila's ear. I know this is scary, but you're not alone anymore. You don't have to fight this battle by yourself. Mila wanted to believe her, but deep down, she knew. No one could fight this battle but her. The next day, something strange happened. Officer Reynolds called and said the police had a lead. We found a possible location where Mr. Grayson might be hiding, she told Miss Carter over the phone. An abandoned house on the edge of town. Fits the description of where he used to do business. Mila's blood ran cold. She knew what business meant. Miss Carter's face was unreadable. And we're raiding it tonight, Officer Reynolds said. If we're lucky, this ends here. Mila couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It was too easy. Mr. Grayson wasn't sloppy. If the police had found an abandoned house linked to him, it was because he wanted them to, which meant he was planning something bigger. Mila's stomach twisted. She had spent her whole life running from him. But what if that was the mistake? What if running was exactly what he expected? What if the only way to stop him was to stop running? That night, the police prepared their raid. Miss Carter kept the doors locked and the curtains drawn, but Mila could feel her nerves. Leo cooed softly, nestled in her arms. His tiny fingers grasped at the edge of her sleeve. She pressed a kiss to his forehead. I won't let him take you, she whispered, and she meant it, even if she had to end this herself. At exactly 11:27 p.m., the phone rang. Miss Carter answered immediately. Reynolds. A long pause. Then, he wasn't there. Mila's stomach dropped. Miss Carter's hand tightened around the phone. What? He wasn't there, Officer Reynolds repeated, frustration clear in her voice. The house was empty. No sign of him. No sign he'd been there recently. We were played. Mila's hands turned ice cold. She had known. She had felt it. Miss Carter swallowed hard. If he wasn't there, then where is he? The silence on the other end made Mila's heart pound. Then, A knock at the door. Every muscle in Mila's body froze. Miss Carter's face went pale. The knock came again. 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. Mila's breath hitched. No. 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 Miss Carter's hands shook as she grabbed the bat she kept by the couch. She looked at Mila, her voice barely a whisper. Take Leo upstairs. Now. Mila didn't move. Miss Carter's voice sharpened. Mila. Go. Mila's hands trembled. She knew who was on the other side of that door. She knew. Mr. Grayson had never been hiding. He had never been running. He was coming for them all along. And now, he was here. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate raps against the wooden door. Mila's breath came in short gasps. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run. But something inside her told her, running won't help this time. Miss Carter gripped the bat tightly. Mila, go upstairs. Lock the door. Mila swallowed hard. She wanted to listen. She wanted to grab Leo and disappear. But she knew one thing for sure. Mr. Grayson wouldn't stop. Not until he had what he wanted. And if she didn't face him now, she might never get another chance. Miss Carter took a slow step toward the door. The tension in the air was suffocating. Then, crash. The living room window shattered. Glass flew everywhere. Mila screamed as someone, lunged through the broken window. Mr. Grayson. Miss Carter barely had time to react before he tackled her to the ground. The bat clattered to the floor. Miss Carter. Mila cried. Mr. Grayson was stronger, but Miss Carter fought like she had nothing to lose. She kicked, shoved, and threw her weight against him. But he was too fast. In an instant, he grabbed her by the throat. Mila's blood turned to ice. Stay back, little girl, Mr. Grayson growled, his voice sharp as a blade. Or she dies first. Miss Carter choked, clawing at his grip. Mila's chest heaved. Leo let out a terrified wail in her arms. Her mind raced. This was it. This was the moment. She couldn't hesitate. She couldn't run. She had to end this. Now. Her eyes darted to the bat lying on the floor, just inches away from them. Miss Carter's face was turning red. Mila acted on instinct. She lunged forward, grabbing the bat with both hands, and swung. Crack. The bat slammed into Mr. Grayson's side. He roared in pain, loosening his grip on Miss Carter, just enough for her to shove him away. Miss Carter gasped for air, stumbling back. Mila didn't wait. She swung again. Crack. This time, she hit his leg. He collapsed to one knee, cursing through gritted teeth. His eyes snapped to hers, full of rage. You little. Before he could move, Miss Carter kicked him square in the face. Blood sprayed across the floor as he fell backward. Mila panted, gripping the bat tightly. Her arms trembled, but she didn't let go. She wouldn't let him win. Not now. Not ever. Mr. Grayson groaned, trying to push himself up. And that's when the sirens filled the air. Loud. Close. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken window. Then, the front door burst open. Police. Hands in the air. Mr. Grayson barely had time to react before officers swarmed him. Within seconds, he was pinned to the ground. Cuffed. Defeated. Mila's body sagged with relief. She looked down at Leo, still crying in her arms, his tiny fists clutching at her shirt. It was over. It was finally over. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Mr. Grayson was dragged out in handcuffs, blood dripping from his nose. He glared at Mila as they shoved him into the police car. You think this is over? He snarled. You don't get to win, girl. Mila's hands clenched into fists. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She stepped forward, holding Leo tight against her chest. You already lost, she said. Her voice didn't shake. For the first time ever, he looked afraid. The police slammed the car door shut. And just like that, he was gone. Officer Reynolds placed a hand on Mila's shoulder. You're safe now, kid. Safe. That word had never meant anything before. But now? Now, she wasn't so sure. She turned to Miss Carter, who pulled her into a tight hug. Mila squeezed her eyes shut, finally letting the tears spill over. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. And no one, not even Mr. Grayson, could take that away from her again. But deep in her heart, she knew This wasn't just the end of something. It was the beginning. The morning after everything changed, Mila stood outside Miss Carter's house, cradling Leo in her arms. The sky was a soft shade of pink, the kind of morning her mother used to say meant something good was coming. For the first time in what felt like forever, Mila dared to believe that might be true. She looked down at Leo, his big brown eyes blinking up at her, his tiny fingers gripping the fabric of her sweater. They had made it. They had survived. Miss Carter stepped outside, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. She handed one to Mila, then ruffled her hair. "Did you sleep at all?" Mila sipped the warm drink, letting it chase away the last of the fear that still clung to her. "A little." Miss Carter smiled knowingly. "That's a start." They sat on the porch together, watching as the sun rose over their new life. Later that day, Officer Reynolds stopped by. She sat across from Mila at the kitchen table, flipping through some papers. "Mr. Grayson won't be getting out anytime soon," she said firmly. "He's facing multiple charges: kidnapping, child endangerment, aggravated assault. With the evidence we have, he'll be locked away for a very long time." Mila exhaled. She had dreamed of hearing those words, but some part of her still expected to wake up and find it was all a lie. "What if he escapes again?" she whispered. Officer Reynolds' expression softened. "He won't." Mila wanted to believe that. Maybe one day, she would. A week passed, then another. Mila slowly started to breathe again. The nightmares didn't disappear overnight. She still woke up in a cold sweat sometimes, reaching for Leo, terrified he was gone. But each time, she found him there, safe, warm, still hers. And every time, Miss Carter was there too, sitting beside her, rubbing her back until she fell asleep again. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living. One afternoon, Miss Carter took Mila and Leo to a small park. It was nothing fancy, just a few swings, a slide, and a grassy field. Mila hadn't played in years. She had been too busy running, too busy fighting. But when Miss Carter sat Leo in the baby swing and gave him a gentle push, something inside Mila softened. Leo giggled, his chubby hands waving excitedly. Mila smiled. A real one, the kind that didn't feel forced. Miss Carter nudged her. "Go on, take a swing." Mila hesitated. Then, slowly, she walked over and sat down. She kicked off the ground gently, feeling the wind rush against her face as she soared higher and higher. She closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt light. She felt free. That night, as they sat around the dinner table, Miss Carter cleared her throat. "I have something I want to talk to you about, sweetheart." Mila glanced up, suddenly nervous. "What is it?" Miss Carter took a deep breath. "I want to adopt you and Leo." Mila's heart stopped. She blinked, certain she had misheard. "What?" Miss Carter smiled, reaching for her hand. "You belong here, Mila. You and Leo. I don't want you to ever have to worry about where you're going next, or whether someone will take you away. I want to be your family. If you'll have me." Tears blurred Mila's vision. Family. That word had felt like a distant dream, something she had lost the night her mother died. But now, maybe she hadn't lost it at all. Maybe she had found it again. With trembling fingers, she squeezed Miss Carter's hand. "Yes," she whispered. Miss Carter pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. "I love you, sweetheart." Mila buried her face in Miss Carter's shoulder, letting the tears fall. She had been so afraid of losing Leo, but she hadn't just saved him. She had saved herself, too. That night, for the first time in forever, Mila fell asleep without fear. She didn't listen for footsteps in the dark. She didn't brace for danger. She just held Leo close, safe in the knowledge that when she woke up, they would still be home, and nothing, not even the past, could take that away from them now.